or the Alberta Wildfire Relief Fund under the Red Cross, which if you donate $1, both federal and provincial governments will double it. So they'll be up to $3. So if you had your eyes on something tomorrow, maybe tomorrow's the day to buy it. And we're going to donate the profits probably for the rest of the summer from any bottles of or cans of Jasper Brewing products that we sell. So if you buy Jasper beer and support that brewery and its employees, we will just donate the proceeds from those sales until the end. And so we're going to make an effort to keep Jasper beer stocked up for that reason as well too. Thanks for reminding me of that, Harmony. I suppose the last one, okay, Jeff figured out his audio. That's good. The last thing is, if you haven't already heard about it, you'll probably see something in our newsletter Thursday that's exciting. It's a weekend that we have planned in September that's going to be rather epic. I won't say anything more for now. If you're curious, you can email me. It's not inexpensive, but it's going to be incredible value and a lot of fun. Shall we on to some whiskeys?
Oh, yes, I think we shall.
Okay. So what we're sampling tonight is all from a company called Mossburn Distillers, which has been around for a little while. They're an independent bottler, a blender as well, if you consider that they've got blended malts here where they've done their own cask configurations. But what's really interesting is they've now opened a distillery, Tora-vague on the island of Skye. The story behind that distillery is also quite interesting. And they've got 2 other bottlings that were released to promote the idea of whiskey from the Isle of Skye, the Caisteal Chamuis. I keep wanting to pronounce that C, but it's really, really stumping me here. So the first 4 whiskeys are all exclusive to Kensington Wine Market. They're all very well priced, which was one of the attractions to them. And let's get things started off with the Mossburn Speyside No. 2 blended malt. So the No. 2 refers to the essentially the cask configuration or the cask makeup. So what they do with this one here is that it starts out in American oak whiskey barrels, and then they finish it in Oloroso sherry casks that have heavy charred, I believe, American oak heads on them. Yeah, American oak heads. So what they're trying to do here is add sherry notes to a mix of Speyside single malts that they've blended together. But that interesting addition of virgin oak is going to kind of add a nice velvety background to everything. So you're getting something quite sherried, but with a really nice balance to it too. So this is where we're starting off with the Mossburn Speyside No. 2 blended malt. Only 60 bottles of this came into the market. I believe it's 46%. And non-chill filtered, no added color. What do we think about that?
Oh, I know that we tried these a few months ago, and I really liked this one when we first tried it.
When Pacific approached us on these, I'll be honest, I was a little nervous because blended malts are not always an easy sell. There's a lot of kind of gimmicky blended malt brands out there. But I think in a lot of cases, the proof is in the pudding. And in this one, my nieces who grew up in the UK would probably call this a pudding dram if they were old enough to drink whiskey, because it is quite sweet and soft and creamy on the palate. The sherry notes are interesting. Like, this is not a sherry bomb. This is not something that people looking for an over-the-top sherried whiskey would probably gravitate towards. But there's some nice dark fruits, some chocolate tones. And Jeff is literally just drooling at the screen tonight, apparently. Sorry, Jeff.
Glassette raisins is a good call. I also get, I think I said this a couple days ago on a whiskey, I'm getting like a nice rhubarb note that's coming through on the sherry.
Rhubarb is a good call. I like that. Kind of like a strawberry rhubarb mixture. I've been saying Glossette raisins, butterscotch in butterscotch pudding. There's a nice spiciness to it too. And to me, even though it's sherried, it's quite buttery. And you can really feel that virgin oak or new American oak kind of toasty, spicy, velvety mouthfeel on the palate as well. but we're not going to spend too much time going back and forth on this now, except for I haven't done this yet. Maybe we should add a drop of water to it just to see if it swims. This will be my first time trying that, so see what goes. That was
I will
pretty
join you.
easily amount of water, but put a tiny bit more in there. So Jeff does have his samples. I think I misread that. They're just warm, which is unfortunate. So
Well, you'll have what happened to me like last week, and they'll be so warm, they'll be cloudy in 5 minutes, and you'll think something's wrong with them.
you could just put them in the refrigerator for like 10 minutes and let them naturally come up a little. I think I might even like that better with water than I did without.
It's really nice.
Loads of caramel, loads of chocolate.
More
Um,
chocolate.
kind of, this is a tasting note I haven't thrown in a while. Gas station jelly beans. Anyone remember back when you put a quarter in and you twist the dial and you get some stale ass jelly beans from the gas station?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Evan in the chat said it goes into Glenmorangie Quinta Rubin territory with water. I can see that. It's more chocolatey, I think,
Quite
with a
chocolatey.
little drier. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Very
Well,
nice.
that's our first whiskey. $72, pretty good value. Um, uh, if any of you watch the videos that we linked with Bruce from Tora-vague and Mossburn, I think he calls these his Saturday night or Monday night football drams. These are drams to not, I guess it's kind of
Choose.
like your Bud Light of beers. Like you're just drinking it while you watch football. Except these taste good would be the qualifier to that.
Well, thank goodness.
Thank goodness they taste good. All right, let's move on to the blended malt number one, the peated or the island. Sorry, it doesn't say island, but it is peated. The island blended malt. I'll pop that one up on screen here. So once again, that number one refers to the cask configuration for this. So they finished this in first fill X bourbon barrels with virgin European oak heads. So we're getting different new American or new European oak heads on this, and ex bourbon barrels, and it's distilled on the islands of Scotland. And I believe I asked Bruce the question in the video whether in time they might be using some portion, and I suppose the same is true for the Caisteal Chamuis range, whether they would be using some of their own distillate in that. And they hadn't originally thought about that, but that is something that could happen. But I believe for now, this is not, there's no Tora-vague in this. This is other island malts. And Evan is saying some Lecheg 10 notes on this one.
Thank you, Evan. I was thinking the same thing, which is awesome.
It does, but you know what? One interesting, and I didn't ask him this. I wonder if that other distillery on the Isle of Skye might have been willing to part with some stock, given that it was going to be blended and not bottled as single malts.
It could be. It does have some nice, like, salty brine to it. Yeah,
Well,
could be why Jeff thinks Kalila as well, as a reminder.
um, he didn't, and Evan, I don't know if you watched the whole videos, but as with many things in my life, once I've done it, it sort of fades into my brain and it gets locked somewhere in the gray matter there. But I don't remember if I don't remember if I'd asked him if there was Isla whiskeys in this, but it kind of got the impression from him it was other distilleries other than Isla. But maybe some peated Aaron, like it's got this nice sort of clean barley peated note that does remind me a bit of some young
Yeah,
peated Aaron.
yeah.
It doesn't come with that overwhelming sense of shame that like a heavy Lecheg presence might layer on top of a whiskey. Kidding, of course.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you don't feel shame drinking this. This is quite nice. It's definitely got lots of dried fruit and like pepper to it. The palate I find quite different than the nose, which is cool.
It is a tad, Evan's called Ardnamurchan. It is a tad Ardnamurchan-esque. Um, but it reminds me, like, it's got that nice salty note. The peat is not Isla peat. I mean, the peat is Highland peat. And
Mm.
there's things in this that remind me a little bit of, again, peated Arran, Ardnamurchan, and maybe a little bit of Lecheg as well. I think those are probably safe to bet, are probably the more likely culprits to be parts of this blend. As much as I
Mhm.
would love to suggest that there's Highland Park in this,
It could.
but there could be. And I suppose there is a fair bit of mystery Orkney out there. So, um, Evan's saying Lecheg 10 is pretty darn clean compared to just about any other Lecheg. Hmm. It's been a while since I've had it. Briny, some nice like seaweed wafer notes, citrus,
Mhm.
lots of like lemon, a little bit of butter. I'm gonna go to I'm gonna take this whiskey to the swimming pool here as well and see if it sinks or floats. We'll put a little water in there. Once again, at least in my opinion, pretty good value here. We're talking, I believe it's 72 bucks as well, unless this one's slightly more. Yep, 72 bucks for the Mossburn Island #1. Um, which, in this day and age, like you look at what even things like, what does Ardbeg 10 run these days? Is it 95, something like that? Like it's very close to $100 now.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt with water um at all, actually. It doesn't hurt at all. It's not as citrusy.
No,
It's like I find some of the fruit notes go away. You get more of those oak tones.
it's more
Um,
grassy with water as well. Uh,
yes.
but I get a cleaner sort of ashy smoke with it,
Yeah.
with a drop of water. Perhaps a little bit of cheese rind, per Evan's note earlier, but I agree. It doesn't take water badly. I think for me, I'd probably prefer it without, but
Mhm.
not a bad dram. All right, that's the Mossburn range. Um, I am going to pull up some photos here because, and I'm going to pull them as is my way from my Instagram page because that's the easiest place for me to find organized photos that I've taken. But I'm going to show you guys a few photos here of the ruined castle that inspired the drams we are about to try here. So it's located down on the water's edge in front of the distillery. Um, come on. And just see if I can pull that in. There we go. Uh, it was probably built by the Lords of the Isles originally, who ruled the west coast of Scotland from around 900 to approximately the mid 1450s. They ruled it from the island of Islay. The Isle of Skye, if my memory serves correctly, was like the stronghold for the MacLeans, whereas Islay was MacDonald's. Anyway, the castle would have guarded the entrance to, or the easy entrance or the easy access to a landing site on this island of Skye, the little beach here that's found right past Tora-vague. In the distance behind, there's a little bit of a headland there. You can see the distillery pagoda kind of popping out
Oh
here.
yeah.
And then the one warehouse they have kind of poking out on the left side there. Because the island is, well, rather beautiful and known for its beauty, it's hard to get planning permission to build umpteen warehouses on the island. So most of the whiskeys are unfortunately going to be matured on the mainland, which is also the case with Talisker Distillery. Very little whiskey from Talisker has ever matured on the island. In fact, I think Tora-vague is maturing more casks on the island than Talisker is. Here's a few shots of the ruins that remain of the castle, and you can see the little settlement here along the coast. But yeah, pretty little site, lots of little ruins scattered about. And there's the castle from the beach near the warehouse at Tora-vague. So those are the whiskeys that we are sampling here, the Caisteal Chamuis range. And let me put the whiskeys up. We're going to start with the NAS Spalling. The intention from these was to kind of show what kind of style the people at Mossburn were looking for with respect to Tora-vague, and to kind of be placeholders for the brand. And as they say here, it's heavily peated and double barreled. So let me pop that up on the screen, and then we can
Really,
close and taste.
the nose to me is so like flowery and honeyed. Peat's just not something that's jumping out on this one.
Mhm. Well, and I mean, with Torabhaig as well, the goal behind Torabhaig was not to recreate Islay style whiskeys. It was,
Right.
in their words, to have what they call well-tempered peats. So they wanted things that were heavily peated, but not necessarily medicinal, not necessarily bracing or rough. They wanted smoke, but they wanted it to be elegant. Um, and so what do we have here? Bottled at 46%, 77.99 for the no age statement one. I am going to quickly look up because I don't remember. I'm assuming the double barreled means both bourbon and sherry, but shamefully, we do not have that information on our website. So let me just see if I can look it up. The blended malt. Finished in first fill bourbon barrels. So probably mostly bourbon, first fill and refill for maturation, and then finished in first fill bourbon barrels. And yeah, your floral note's a good one. I think it's quite floral. There's almost like a little bit of potpourri in there and some nice soft citrus notes.
Mm-hmm.
Sammy's saying this smells great. Big Kalila vibes here. I can see the Kalila. It's not quite as, I mean, granted, it is a blended malt, so they're telling us right off the bat that this is not single malt. I'm not getting the bacon or seafood notes that I would be looking for in a Kalila.
Mm-mm.
On the palate, yeah, I mean, this is a pleasant, another pleasant Islay malt, well put together. I think that finishing in first fill American bourbon or ex bourbon barrels has added this nice pillowy, marshmallow, vanilla, like kind of top note to everything. Those
Mm-hmm.
floral tones that you mentioned, Harmony, are still there. There's a
Yeah.
nice little bit of citrus and really kind of clean, ashy smoke.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like an ashiness that just lays on the tongue a little bit, a little dryness, but you're still getting some nice honeys and sweetness
Mhm.
on the side of your palate.
Man,
Mm.
I can't, I mean, and they're not, with this particular whiskey, I don't think that there's any, um, uh, they're, I don't know that they're declaring that this is, again, island whiskey. Maybe they are, maybe I'm missing something here. So there could be heavily peated malts from other parts of Scotland in theory on this. Does say
Mhm.
island though, so
It does say island.
hmm. I mean, yeah, I would have to wager I don't think there's much Isla malt in this. It doesn't say which ones. Maybe some like refill ex bourbon Highland Park. I don't know.
Mm.
Evan, do you want to weigh in? You're the local Lecheg expert. Do you think this has any hallmarks of Lecheg?
No, it doesn't really taste the island Mossburn definitely did for me, but this one definitely goes not quite heathery, but definitely more honeyed, like I would expect from Highland Park.
And I mean, like, do you think we can safely rule out Jura on this one? I mean, maybe some heavily peated Jura, but like Jura often has kind of a weird funk to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a touch of farminess for me, but it's not overwhelming by any means.
Maybe this is, there might be some Talisker in this. I mean, there is that little bit of like chili chili oil kind of heat.
Peppery. Yeah.
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 We
Well,
can
it definitely
speculate.
comes through with water. I put 2 drops of water, and that chili heat comes through way more.
Ooh. All right, let's take this one to the pool.
Mm.
Jeff's weighing in on the is it or is it not Jura debate, and he is saying it is not. Um, I don't know. To me, it tastes more Jura-esque with a drop of water than it did before.
Ooh.
Maybe this wouldn't succeed, but
Maybe it's just in your head now.
like an idea for a TV show, is it Jura? Like based on is it cake? Which incidentally, nieces and nephews are shockingly entertained by that. Um, I don't know how they watch it, but they do. Well, nay bad once more, another like good, um, another good value whiskey, at a, decent price, drinking well. Let's go on and try the 12-year-old next. Where is it? There we go. The 12-year-old. So 12-year-old blended malt Scotch whiskey created from island single malts, finished in bodega seasoned, minimum 5 years, first fill Oloroso sherry butts. So they've definitely put some effort into this one. They're not just doing a quick and dirty ex-bourbon finishing. There's more of a sherry influence on this. So what do we think of the nose, Harmony?
Oh, it's way richer than the last one. Like it's heavier, um, more fruit, still honey. It's got more peat even on the nose that I found the last one had.
Yeah, there's some nice fruits, some nice chocolate tones in there. The peat is well rounded again, but not over the top. Evan's saying, I'm assuming for this one, green apples and brie.
Mm.
Um, I could see maybe like a little bit of crab apple jelly on
Yeah, I
top
could see
of some
that.
blue cheese. Um, yeah, it's quite enticing. Oh man, this is like
Mm.
a more tame Ardbeg Ugadale on the palate. Um, Obviously uh, doesn't have that kind of Ardbegian quality to it, but that nice mix of both peat and sherry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to quote to use a great British saying that I don't use often enough, like there's definitely no faffing about with this one. Like this is that 5-year bodega sherry, like, and it doesn't come across as like a goopy overt finish. Like
No.
this tastes like it was matured in these casks.
Yeah. Yeah. Spice and dark chocolate on the finish, says Evan, and I completely agree. It's got a really nice finish. I remember Sean liking this the most at the tasting in store. This was his favorite. And
This tastes like Talisker Distillers Edition, but with a bit more ABV to it, and more
yeah,
like Bernadette says gingerbread. I can see that. Um, got these lovely ginger biscuits in England from Fortnum and Masons that are, I forget what they're called, but that does remind me a little bit of them. They're like candied, really spicy candied ginger inside a chocolate wafer coated in chocolate.
mm,
If I wasn't flying carry on, I would have been a nice enough guy to bring a tin of them back to the shop, but alas, next time. Jeff saying Diageo posted losses for their quarterly today. Interestingly, somebody from Diageo in Ontario is coming to visit us tomorrow, so that hasn't happened ever. So yeah, who knows? Also Harmony, I might not be there, but anyway, even though I said
No
uh,
problems.
this is lovely. It's got a really nice balance to it.
Yeah. I
Very
feel like it
elegant.
just keeps getting better
Mhm.
as you sit with it. It's very, very enjoyable, very like soft and pretty peat, like very nicely done.
Oh, damn. Well, would I add water to this? Why not? This is for science. 46% as well. Don't know if I mentioned that. Um,
Yeah, yummy.
I think I'm a no to the water. Doesn't totally ruin it, but not really my jam.
You know, when you enjoy something so much, you're not willing to risk the experiment. That's how
Oh,
I
I
feel.
hear you. Um, yeah. Uh, let's move on to Tora-vague Harmony, unless you have any objections.
No,
Um,
let's do it. The new distillery on Skye. I'm very excited about this. I've really been enjoying them,
right.
and I enjoy introducing people to them in the store.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, Torabhaig is the first new distillery on the island of Skye since the Talisker distillery was built. And for some reason in my head, and checker Jeff and or Evan can correct me on this. I seem to think that Talisker dated from the 1820s, somewhere in that range. I think it's one of the oldest of Diageo's distilleries. Um, it was originally the idea of a businessman from Edinburgh who fell in love with the Isle of Skye and Gaelic culture, a man by the name of Sir Ian Noble. He wanted to build a distillery on a farmstead that was on land that he owned on the island. But unfortunately, he didn't live to see the project come to fruition. Independently, the guys at Mossburn Distillery and gals, I should say, the folks, the chaps at Mossburn Distillers wanted to build a distillery on the island of Skye. They heard this story about Sir Ian Noble and his desire to build a distillery in this old farmsteading. So they approached his widow, and the widow eventually agreed to sell them the land and the buildings if they promised to build the distillery there. So it's an 18th century farmstead. Interestingly, when you look at these, they all tend to be fairly square and self-contained. My theory on this is that back in the day, there was a lot of cattle rustling going on, not in the old Western style, but more in the like Highland Raider variety. And so they were built so that they could be easily defended. You could get all your livestock on the inside and then defend
Mhm.
from the outer walls. And this isn't the only distillery that I know of in
Okay.
Scotland where they have actually
Your
built.
last baby.
What?
Sorry. Oh,
Sorry.
yeah. All good.
Tony just walked in. I thought I was muted. I'm sorry, everyone.
No worries, Harmony. And I'll show you a few photos of this, but I just want to get some details here before I forget about them. Uh, there's another distillery called Ballandalloch that was also built into an old centuries old farmsteading. The challenge with that is that you're then restricted with what you can do to the building. So they had to make the distillery fit for purpose inside this small building. They have a fairly long fermentation ranging from 60 to 100 hours. Their average comes close to 72, and the malt that they're using is spec'd to about 77 ppm, which is fairly high. But they believe that again, through their choice of uh, how they run their stills, their fermentation, all those various factors, that they're still creating what they like to call a well-tempered peat profile in their whiskey. So I'm going to start off here with, and I realize I haven't shared my screen yet, but that's because I'm trying to get this thing primed. I'm going to start off with the view of the distillery from above. This is from the road. It's a very beautiful little distillery. There you go. You can see it in the distance. I'll zoom in a little bit here. There it is there. You see I believe that's the Isle of Mull in the distance there, not far away. Or that might actually be, sorry, that might be Ardnamurchan, and then Mull is behind that. The Ardnamurchan Peninsula with the Isle of Mull behind it. I did go up to the water source with Bruce, but I don't believe that's this. That's the distillery, the farmsteading from below. But bear with me here. I'm going to switch. I think I go back. Do I go this way? Yes. All right. So this is the interior of the distillery and the visit. The little full lauter ton, copper topped, quite pretty. Oregon pine washbacks in the area that's used for fermentation. You can see like they're really tight for space here. And one of the other factors you think of modern distilleries is you also have to accommodate tourists and visitors. So when you're planning your distillery, you've got to be sure that you're going to be able to allow them to walk through the building. There's the stills, fairly small copper stills with shell and tube condensers, and ye old spirit safe. Both the stills are named for the late Sir Ian Noble and his wife Lady Noble, which is quite nice. And then this is a shot from inside the one warehouse they have on the property. Interestingly, I think I took a photo, Tora-vague 2015, an X 4 cask by the looks of things up there. I think I have some shots from the water source as well too, but we'll get to that in a second. I think what we should do now is try the Allt Gleann, the second release in the Legacy series, the first one to come to Canada. And then we're going to try the Allt Gleann batch strength, which even though it's the same whiskey at different proofs, I hope you'll find, as I do, that they actually drink quite differently. One of the details that I love about Torabhaig is not only do they tell you what the ppm spec on the malt is, but they also tell you what the spec is on the distillate. So originally distilled to 70, or with malt peated to 77 ppm. In the regular Allt Gleann bottling, it was just 17 ppm by the time it got to bottling. A mix of 80% first fill and 20% refill casks. The Allt Gleann, which is named for one of the two water sources, is kind of a spirit-driven Tora-vague whiskey, which I really like. It does give you an opportunity to see what the distillate is like. And Bernadette adding the batch strength is also about a year older. Interesting fact. So,
Oh, the nose is so pretty.
it's got a little bit of like a wet, ashy, slightly muddy peat note coming off of it. I get some nice like cooked root vegetables like carrots and turnips. Hopefully that's not a turnoff for people. I do quite love a good root veg.
No, sometimes I just get jealous when I hear other people's notes. Like I'm like, oh, I want to smell that when I don't.
Like heirloom carrots too. Like, you know, the ones where you go to farmer's market and you get a bag of carrots that all look different.
Yeah.
This smells like opening a bag of heirloom carrots.
Cool.
Evan's saying macadamia chocolate chip cookies from Hawaii.
Wow. Sounds like we all need to go to
better than
Hawaii
root
so we can get on
vegetables.
Evan's page here.
Camp Mall. The palate on this is lovely. I mean, it's lush, it's creamy. Evan said chamomile and cereal notes. It reminds me of Village Ice Cream here in town has an ice cream called their Three Hills Earl Grey iced tea, or like ice cream. This reminds me of that Three Hills. It's kind of floral and sweet, and creamy all at the same time.
Yeah, it's very creamy and like a really nice oiliness. Mm.
Mhm.
Lavender ice cream,
Yeah.
says Fraser. I'm not sure if he's talking about the whiskey or just other ice creams that he likes from Village.
I have not tried a lavender ice cream, but I think I would be down. Being a
Yeah.
fan of Bowmore from that era that we don't euphemistically refer to anymore, I probably would like a good lavender ice cream.
Yeah. Mm.
I mean, very drinkable. I believe the whiskeys in this are about roughly 6 to 7 years of age. But the spirit shows really well. It drinks really well. I'm going to add some water. See what that does. I mean, this is not one of the things to keep in mind. I mean, this is kind of a challenge because they want people to buy the Allt Gleann, but this isn't the end point for Tora-vague. This is kind of the middle point in the journey as they get towards 10 and 12-year-old single malts. But it has a grace and an elegance about it that I think goes beyond its age and years, which
Mhm.
I think is easier to do in peated whiskeys. We've talked about this in tastings in the past. Regardless of that, I think this shows really well. More fruit now with water for me. Sort of staying more in that citrus realm, like lemon and orange. A little bit waxy.
Mhm.
Kind of like a poached pear thing as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that. To me, it's very pear, even pear skins. And then there's like a nice smokiness, like ashy smoke.
Mhm.
That with water, the ashiness kind of tames down,
Mhm.
and it's more juicy for me.
And yeah, it's definitely getting ashier and more towards that sort of barbecue, like barbecue coals, barbecue pork, like baby back ribs kind of note. I want my baby back ribs. Isn't that that's from something. Can't remember what. I know Fat Bastard sang it, but I know that's not the original. It was probably a Tony Roma's advert or something. Uh
Okay.
let's move on and try the let's move on and try the Allt Gleann batch strength, which as Bernadette mentioned, is actually slightly older than the regular Allt Gleann. Oh, it's a Chili's restaurant thing. There you go. Thanks, Jeff.
He had to sing it all to himself. I did it in my head. He probably did too.
That's all good. So the Allt Gleann batch strength, not as much of this came into the market. We've got I think a half dozen or so bottles of this left, and then I believe it's gone forever.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
the uh, the next one, well, I won't even get into the next one yet, but the Allt Gleann batch strength, I mentioned before that Tora-vague is tracking the effective phenols as well as the phenols from the malt. So again, the phenols in the malt were 77 for distillation. This has been bottled at 61.1%, and the effective phenols are 22.8, which is essentially the result of less water. But if this is
Right.
also a year older, then it's also more time for those phenols to sort of fade a little bit in the maturation process. And at 61.1%, it is almost a third less water than is in the batch strength or the regular, the 46% strength bottling. Uh, so what do we think about this? I mean, they're
It's
similar, but they're
Yeah, it's
different right
everything
away.
seems enhanced. It's like honey nut shreddies and thick. I don't know. It's got more saline to me, more solidity.
Oh, the
Um,
salinity is a good call in this.
yeah,
I mean,
and then like spices too. Like it's got more baking spices, like cinnamon, than I got on the first one.
I think that this is sort of in some ways a justification of why there's a lot of us that prefer cast strength whiskeys to 46. Even though 46 is good, and we're much happier with 46 than below, that greater concentration of flavor with that higher ABV. It's a little hot, like a little bit prickly on the nose, but it's not sharp. It's not rough.
Yeah. I think it
Oh,
prepares you perfectly. And like there's your poached pears all over again on the palate. Those soft,
the nice,
creamy fruits,
yeah, poached
white
pears, a little
chocolate.
bit of blue cheese, a touch of like honey or quince paste as well.
Oh yeah.
And the malt, and it didn't talk about the malt. Like both these whiskeys have a nice malt presence, but again, they don't have that aggressive maltiness that you see in some other young single malts.
Yeah. That's why I said Cheerios and not Shreddies. It's it's not quite there.
Mhm. Shreddies.
Yeah, I said it's more of a Cheerio than a Shreddies. I think it's not as hearty and full on the barley side, but
Mm.
the palate is so nice, and there's like this nice creaminess and grassiness.
Mhm.
Mm.
It's got a great body to it. Again, very approachable for how young it is at 61.1%. And Evan, note it is not cask strength, it is batch strength. Evan's saying with H2O, it is creamy, sooty funk comes out a bit. So I'm enticed by creamy, sooty funk. So let's see what that is. Let's see. Bernadette is hungry now. Sorry, Bernadette. We always recommend people have dinner before they come to a tasting. So whether virtually or in person. Yeah, here we go. And I believe we do have a Chili's in Calgary. There's one at the airport. I know Jeff's suggesting people could order from that. Um, I don't often choose to eat there, but sometimes it's the only choice you have.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
it's
that's
still
very nice
sweet.
with water. Doesn't hurt it.
Really, sorry, go ahead, Harmony.
I was just saying with water, it doesn't hurt it. I just find that it's more ashy than anything, which is interesting. I was expecting it to taper down and taste more like the first one, but it just became more ashy to me.
Yeah. Sammy saying last I was in Calgary Airport, Chili's was one of the best options. Sadly, the only place with better options is either the US or the international terminal. But yeah, and that's a walk. That's a bit of a walk. Um, it's really nice. It drinks well. I'm not sure what more to say, but yeah, it's got the smoke and the barbecue notes in this are even with water, they're still really quite prominent. I think this is a great middle point for Tora-vague. I believe they're only going to do 4 releases in what they call their legacy series. And then by the time they've sold through the 4th release, we should be at it and either a 10 or a 12-year-old single malt coming out from the distillery.
Cool. That'll be exciting. Like,
Yeah. Lots of interesting digs being taken at airlines in the chat. It's quite humorous, but won't weigh in on it. The last one that we're going on to is a little different, although in some ways it's not that different from the Caisteal Chamuis 12-year, but it's a sherry forward bottling from Tora-vague, and quite a departure from the Allt Gleann. And it is the 3rd release in what they call the Legacy series. It just arrived about a week or so ago into the store. And despite the fact that it's spelled Cnoc as in knock do or knock and knock, it is actually pronounced Cnoc Na Moine. It seems Gaelic pronunciation differs based on where you are in Scotland. And if you're in the Speyside, this is Tora-vague Cnoc Na Moine. And if you're on the Isle of Skye, it's Cnoc Na Moine. Somehow an N is an R. Who am I to argue? Bruce said it's Cnoc Na Moine, so that's what we're gonna go with here. Also, the phenol level on the spirit for this was higher than the Allt Gleann, 78.4. The effective phenols in the bottle, 19.7. 46% matured in a mix of bourbon, Oloroso, and PX sherry casks. So let's dive right in.
So if this has a higher phenol level in the barley, is that because they're just ordering it and they're doing their own measurements, or they're ordering it and you can't really determine, you get to pick a base and they just ship it to you with a label on it says it's 78.7.
I think it's a reflection of the fact that try as they might, even commercial maltsters aren't perfectly
Sure.
accurate. Because I believe I'm actually going to consult something here. I believe the intention is for most of the spirit to have 77 ppm, that was where they decided to settle on. But I could be wrong. And it could just be that this particular batch, when they measured it, that it was showing at that higher proof. But let's see what
He was smoking
actually,
when he measured it.
they actually spec'd 75 ppm for the barley. So both of these
Okay.
were above that. But again,
But then again, like that's them just possibly ordering it at 75 and it arrives at what it is. And they're just being transparent that.
yeah, I think that's exactly it. The intention is they want to have barley peated to 75 ppm. So Ardbeg can tell you probably that, yeah, our barley is 55 ppm, but there are probably some batches that are slightly more and others that are slightly less, because you're going to have that variability. And I mean, this is one of the reasons why people love floor malted whiskeys is that when you're using peat to dry them, how that peat gets absorbed by the barley can be influenced by temperature, humidity, and a whole bunch of other factors that you can't control for. And that's why I suppose some would say the other advantage of these commercial maltsters is they can be more consistent, but even they can only be so consistent. Like there's going to be slight variations because typically they're measuring how much peat is going to be in there by time. And sometimes you're going to get a bit more and sometimes you're going to get a bit less. Yeah.
Cool.
What do we think of this?
It's got it's like smoked orange going on, which is nice.
Could you use I mean, probably would curdle, but like, could you use yogurt in a barbecue sauce? Just asking. I don't know. I'm not a chef.
Yeah, why not?
Because it's got kind of like a barbecue / yogurt vibe to me.
I mean, you'd have to keep it in the fridge, but yeah.
Like the second you cook it, though, is what happens to the yogurt.
I don't know. I don't think it would. I don't know. Just probably like bake on, I would say. I don't think it would curdle or anything. I think it would just stick.
Incidentally, from my my waitering days where I worked at a Kelsey's, if you haven't tried it, honey garlic and ranch 50/50, incredible dipping sauce.
I hate
You
ranch.
get a little bit of that. Way back when in university. The palate on this, it's feels woodier, spicier. There's a little bit of chocolate there. Some similarities with that Caisteal Chamuis 12-year, but not quite as sherry, not quite as deep, not quite as rich.
I find it has like more berry notes than the 12. Still leaning into that like dry, dark chocolate and like more of that Friar's baked like chocolate powder. Yeah. It's like it's more like leathery than the other ones.
There's an interesting side chat about dipping sauces now happening in the chat. It does taste slightly older, like the mouthfeel is slightly older than the Allt Gleann. So one of the things that's kind of cool about watching this progression and I was lucky, I don't remember the name of it right now, but I was lucky to try their first release. Unfortunately, we never saw any in our market, but there's been this trajectory towards a slightly more mature spirit, slightly more evolved. And I think even with that sherry component in here, you can still see that same very clean smoke,
Mhm.
vegetal sort of profile carrying through.
Yeah. To me, it's all this like, yeah, clean smoke,
Mhm.
thick kind of honey and floral, and then the finishes all seem to show their cask.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a lovely whiskey. I love that they're not trying to either replicate or outdo Isla. Like they seem to be just trying to do their own thing, and I think it works. The barley, like the fruits, the smoke, everything in there. It's a nice addition to the range. Hopefully, we'll see a batch strength version of this at some point too. Hint, hint, Bernadette. No, I'm just kidding. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, it's a great addition to the range, and
Yeah.
I quite like it. So we got a speed round to do. Evan, do you want to join us for the speed round just to make it a little bit more exciting, or are you going to stay logo
Yeah, I
Evan?
can do that.
All right, Evan's going to join us, and then we'll have a vote. Now, dare I ask, Evan, how many questions are there tonight? I haven't even looked.
There are three.
Oh, there are three, so there will be a special question. Fun. All right. So speed round, back to the Mossburn Speyside blended malt number 2. Thoughts?
A little bit of maple syrup and butterscotch on it now on the nose.
Mm.
It reminds
Touch
me
of
of
coffee as well.
the Tommy Bahamas honey butter.
Mm.
Oh, cool. I was gonna say like that inexpensive butterscotch topping for your ice cream.
Yeah,
Um,
like caramel macchiato
It's
on the nose too. A little bit
100% like
coffee-esque.
Old
Interesting.
English butterscotch ice cream on the palate.
And to me, the palate is like way more like berries and plums than the first time.
There's
I
a
would
little bit of strawberry yogurt to that.
Oh, yeah.
I would way rather have that
Blackberry yogurt.
as an option for a whiskey on a plane than Glenlivet 12. Just saying. It's not likely, I know, but like
Yeah. Oh, it's nice.
Yeah.
The finish is it's going more like fuzzy peaches.
mhm.
Mhm.
Mossburn
Yeah.
number 1 or Island blended malt number 1 cask recipe. What are we thinking?
A little bit more grass and hay, but still pretty clean on the nose.
Okay. You still thinking, Evan, that this is like like a clean Lecheg-ish profile?
It does still have a lot of that to me, but the palate's a little bit less on the lemons. This time around, a little bit softer and rounder.
Funny is I still get a ton of lemons on there.
I
So
did too. It's
cool.
a lot of lemon.
All right. Caisteal Chamuis. I think I've now said that more or less correctly every single time. Blended malt. Nose, Harmony.
It's like cheap crayons, like not the cool crayon brand.
You
It's
mean
like
the kind of crayons that you get at Boston Pizza for
yeah, yeah. You open up that bag and you get that like dirty wax.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't draw
Is it,
very well, but sorry, Evan.
sorry, I was just talking to my kids there. Is this the first of the Caisteal
Hamish.
Chamuis? Thank you.
Yeah. Harmony and I worked it out. Cat stool, and then like you start saying Hamish and then switch to much.
Yeah.
Cat stool.
I was thinking ham-wush. Ham-wush.
Because you want to say Hamwell so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to be related to Shamwow.
I mean,
Yeah.
this does have a little bit of a like what the hell is it called? Spam note on the nose.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit meaty.
I grew up on Spam and I can't remember it, and I do want to buy it again, but I know like my heartburn would hate me for it. Um,
You know what I miss, but my body probably doesn't, is fried bologna sandwiches.
Oh, my
Mhm.
dad
I
used to
used to
make us
love
those
those when
all
I
the
was a
time.
kid. I now accept that that would probably not be a recipe for long life, but
What
I
do you
enjoy
put
them.
on them?
Uh, Butter, mayo, like so. I just fry the bologna or like grill or like in a pan, and then toasted bread, butter on one side, mayo and mustard on the other, and a little bit of cheese.
Okay. Yeah, my dad used to do it with like cheese whiz and mustard. It was like it's too much.
Yeah.
And we would watch him eat it like gross, you're gross.
I think I parted ways with Cheese Whiz about 30 years ago, so I've
Yes.
never looked back. I
Mm,
did
that's
enjoy Cheese Was while Crystal used to make it next door, though.
Mhm.
It was a modern interpretation of Cheese Whiz made by a gourmet cheese shop.
Yeah, it was elevated cheese whiz.
cheese whiz. I love it.
Mhm.
Going into the 12, it's lovely. It's just a really nice whiskey.
Tammy's saying I had pork from a bag of some nachos last night, which then made me immediately think of, and I think I'm already, well, I'm still on that pork rinds. Getting a little bit of pork rinds on the Caisteal Chamuis. Um, what about the 12-year-old? Caisteal
Oh,
Chamuis 12-year-old.
there's this like weird but interesting, like almost like a hoppiness to it with this bitter note that comes through.
hmm That's good. I was gonna say weed, but hop is
Mhm.
better.
Herbaceous, we'll go with.
Closely related, closely related
There we go.
botanical species as well. So we'll
hmm
take it.
Mhm.
Alt
Well,
Gleann.
just gonna say it's
Possibly unrelated, but probably related. I tasted that 12 and then I added a bottle to my wish list for a whiskey calendar this year. So
So, so Jeff and Sammy were going off in some direction about canned foods, and someone said cat food. Um, on the alt clean, I do get a touch of kibble, which is not in any way a criticism, but I do get a little bit of a note of kibble on there.
oh shoot, why'd you say that? I do too.
Mhm. The palate though is
But lemony.
vegetal, peat, and yeah, loads of citrus, um, and even buttery. Like it's got this nice lush
mhm.
base.
Yeah,
Oh, that's tasty. You know, I thought that this is going to be tough. I thought for sure after that first round that the Caisteal Chamuis 12 would be in my top three, but I'm not sure now.
Yeah, the Tora-vagues just are
Mhm.
really nice.
The Alt
yeah.
Queen batch strength, man, it's
That is showing. Yeah,
that is a big dram. It's like
this. Yeah, you're smoking. You're barbecuing or making s'mores right by the sea.
mhm. it's
Evan, we should go back to Doc Swinson's and do that at that oyster
Yeah,
place.
it is
yeah. Like put
gentle.
an oyster in with those s'mores.
Yeah.
Moister.
Mhm.
Oysters. Mm.
Moisters. I'm going to pass on that due to
Yeah.
my inability to consume said food group anymore. But
Mhm.
Marshmallows missing, man.
I agree with Fraser. This cast batch strength is like all chocolate.
and barbecue. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
barbecue chocolate.
it's now reminding me of that vinegar-based barbecue sauce they have at Hayden Block.
Mhm.
All right, the Cnoc Na Moine, last one.
And I'm not saying this is Salford or in any way, but there is something a little bit racquetball-esque on there.
I love how we feel we need to preface things where we
Yeah.
think people are going to interpret what we've just said as a criticism. Um, I mean, I get more of a tennis ball than a racquetball vibe, like a freshly cracked can of tennis balls. But I see where
That's fair. So more vinyl than rubber, you're saying.
Fraser's saying lacrosse Jeff Pickleball.
Nice.
You know what? It's been so long, I don't remember what a lacrosse ball smells like. That's another 30-year, that's another
That's
30-year,
it's like a denser version of a racquetball.
I can tell you what it feels like when you get hit with one in the face.
Yeah.
Not fun.
That's how
I think
Fraser.
it's actually worse than a puck. Like I'd almost rather get hit by a puck.
That's yeah, I think Jeff has the right of it. He says lacrosse balls smell like sweat and pain.
Yeah. Great lineup. Despite the fact that, like this is maybe on the low end for what we would do for a range of whiskeys for a tasting. I think everything here kind of punched above
Big time.
the price point. So dollars for value. I mean, I think this is actually probably one of the better ranges we've had in a while. Let's trigger the vote here. So polls. Maybe Evan, I don't know if you have to. It says it's asking me to create.
Ooh, let's see if I can find it then. Oh, come on.
There is none. Well, I feel like Gabby, we could just ask the
Oh, you
group.
know why is it's because you created the Zoom link. I'll have to remember that for the other ones you created the Zoom link for. I'll have to create the quiz on yours.
Evan, what if I give you host?
You can try. I don't think that's gonna do it though.
I just did.
No.
I'm now a nobody, so you're gonna have to.
Yeah, it's still telling me to create a quiz or a poll.
All right. Do you wanna maybe just tell us what
Yeah.
your favorite?
Let me see. Yeah, so my favorites, my top three are the batch strength Tora-vague,
Mhm.
followed, although it's tough, by the Caisteal Chamuis, and then the regular Tora-vague Alt Gleann.
And so when you say Caisteal Chamuis, you mean the regular
The
one?
12-year-old.
Oh, the
The
12.
12, sorry.
12.
Yeah,
Okay.
the new calendar bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we haven't even touched on that yet, but
I know, I feel like we should. I was gonna email you.
well, we will talk about this shortly. So, long story short, we got in trouble for our calendar last year. So this year we're gonna do 5 sets of 5 whiskey tastings, which if you buy all of them, will be kind of like a calendar, and maybe they'll come in a box that says
If you
something
stack it
humorous.
right.
Yeah, we don't want to give away too many details just yet, but let's just say we remain undaunted by the challenge of providing people 25 drams for the month of December.
We will drink in December. Yeah.
Harmony, what are your 3 favorites?
I think the Torabhaig Alt Gleann, the regular, was my favorite. And then same as the first time we did this, the Mossburn blended, number 2, malt.
Sure.
And then the Caisteal 12 again is delicious.
Oh man, I'm really struggling here. I think I'm gonna go Alt Gleann batch strength, Mossburn Speyside number 2, like Harmony, and then the Caisteal Chamuis 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Final answer. So, Evan,
Yeah.
what was your cheeky third question, if we might inquire?
Oh, well, I'll try and read this one, but it was a toughie. So it was which other quirkily named or difficult to pronounce place in Scotland deserves to have a distillery named after it? So the choices, and there are 7, are Ecclefechan or Ecclefechan, Milngavi, Findockley, Butts Wynd,
Yes.
Auchenchuggle, Kirkintilloch, and Tongue of Gangsta, which is in the Orkneys apparently.
Oh man, it's got to be Tongue of Gangsta.
Oh yeah, it
Despite,
has to be.
despite the butt one, which I don't even remember now. Incidentally, there is also a place in Scotland called Doofus.
Oh
And I
God.
know this because we accidentally drove by it once. And somebody tried to, it's a coastal area in the Speyside. Somebody tried to build a castle on top of a pile of sand that they accumulated. And I think that the origin of the doofus has to have come from that. Because, like, what kind of doofus would try to build a stone castle on a pile of sand?
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but
also
that's
on the
that's
Orkneys,
speculative.
apparently, also in the Orkneys, apparently, there's two farms next to each other, or old farmsteads named Hell and Purgatory. Uh, but I didn't even go into the numerous crass names for genitalia that Scotland has places named after.
That sounds like the next tasting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We might have to delve into that. Maybe we just pick a random assortment of whiskeys and use it as a vehicle to talk about unusual place names in Scotland.
Just throw it
There you
in on
go.
the Diageo tasting.
Yeah, we'll just put it in there a little bit. Yeah, I've driven by some places where you're just like, what is that? Like, there's Octorarder, Loch Gilphead, which is the head of Loch Gilp, but like doesn't sound great.
Original.
I don't even think in Gaelic that would sound good. It would just be dreadful. But yeah. Canada also has some great place names like Big Beaver and Little Beaver, Saskatchewan.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's many. But anyway, well, this was a fun lineup, guys. As we kind of promised, I think this was also kind of a quick and dirty, short tasting little summer session. So hope you all enjoyed it. If you're not already planning to, maybe we can convince you to join us next Tuesday, same time, same bat channel for our KWM Berry Brothers casks in a 4x double header. And if you'd like more of Harmony and Evan, you can join them tomorrow night for the SMWS August outturn, which has famously lavender-esque Isla whiskey in it this month.
Mhm.
And if
That
you like these whiskeys, buy them tomorrow and we'll donate the money to Jasper.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
There
buy
you
one.
go.
Well, if you buy them tonight, it'll be the
We'll
same thing.
process it tomorrow.
We
Yeah.
won't process them until tomorrow, but
Yeah.
that's a good call, Harmony.
Yeah.
That is definitely an option. Anyway, Harmony, thank you very much. Evan, thanks for chiming in. Hope you all enjoyed the tasting, and we'll see you either tomorrow or next week.
All right.
Or